Hello and welcome to week 3 of PUBH612. Today we will review community health assessment for program planning. The learning objectives for this week are to define the community as a context and recipient of health programs, to define planning and review various approaches to planning, and to also review various approaches and methods to conducting a needs assessment. A community includes people and some form of proximity or place that enables interaction. And that interaction leads to shared values or culture. Within a community, people must be able to interact. This can be virtual or in person, and this interaction creates shared values and culture. Another defining aspect of a community is that its members have shared norms and behaviors. In order to determine who will receive a health program, first the community must be defined. A health program may target the entire community or some of its members. Community assessments or community needs assessments are processes by which planners seek to understand and describe the health problem more fully. The community may be viewed as the context of the program in two ways. First, the idea of a community includes socio-political and economic factors which impact program planning and implementation. Second, community members in the planning process are the immediate context of the intervention. And as an example of a community as a context and recipient of a health program is an elementary school where students were assessed to identify health topics, and then the students worked with, for instance, pediatric residents to develop a health magazine with appropriate norms and level of knowledge as were defined by those students themselves. Collaboration between health program planners and community leaders is increasingly valued and is now often mandated by funding agencies. Collaboration creates interaction, as depicted here in Figure 3.1. Interaction and influences move in two directions, with energy and ideas flowing toward the health program, and the results and respect flowing from the health program. These three terms relate to community health planning: community-based, community-focused, and community-driven. Community-based describes where a program is provided. A community-based program is located within the boundaries of the community, for instance, in a local church, barbershop, clinic, school, etc. Community-focused refers to the way the program is designed. Health programs that seek to affect the community as a whole are described as community-focused, while health programs that involve community members in planning and designing the program are community-driven. These terms are not mutually exclusive, and a program can be all three of these things simultaneously. A program can vary in the degree to which they are community-based, focused, or driven. And these terms can also be applied to families, populations, or other aggregates. Here is a diagram demonstrating the interrelated nature of the three terms. Planning in the context of the planning and evaluation cycle is the process of gathering information and making the subsequent decision regarding how something will be done. There are many definitions of planning, but all share elements of using a rational approach, making change, and using a democratic or participatory process. In terms of program planning, is a set of activities in which key individuals define a set of desired improvements and establish a means to measure the attainment of those improvements. There are 6 approaches to planning. Each approach provides a basis for assessing possible points of contention or agreement regarding health program priorities. Each approach has several typical planning activities shown here in Table 3.2 and on the next slide. None of these approaches are better than the others, but the idea is that you should be aware of the different approaches and select the one which is best for your situation. The incremental approach addresses immediate concerns and hopes that disconnected plans and actions will ultimately have a positive cumulative effect on the problem. Because of the short-term focus, the plans may fail because of unforeseen or unaccounted for factors and can lead to duplication of efforts or conflicting plans. But sometimes, when limited funding is available and earmarked only for certain populations or certain health issues, the incremental approach is the only option. The apolitical approach focuses on technical knowledge, and hence the public health example shown here is the reliance on evidence-based interventions. But this approach does not take into account cultural issues involving the potential program participants and the staff members, and as a consequence, the experts may not accurately speak for others. Overall, the apolitical approach is rational, logical, and identifies solutions with the documented highest efficacy. The advocacy approach mandates citizen participation. This is a bottom-up form of rational planning. This approach assumes that an expert can speak for others in the group or community with less power, and public health examples of this include environmental activists. The communication of action approach is concerned with the distribution of power and communication. While the advocacy approach doesn't allow those with the problem to participate as equals with experts in the process, this approach does. Examples of this approach are community coalitions or nonprofit organizations which are made up of community members who are living with the issue that they are trying to address, such as the National Alliance on Mental Illness. The comprehensive rational approach is a systems approach with feedback loops. This systematic and local approach is rational, but it assumes that the factors affecting the problem can be known and all contingencies anticipated. And that's not always possible in real life. In this approach, planners set goals, identify alternatives, implement programs, and monitor results. This is the main approach used in this textbook and in most planning and evaluation courses. Lastly is the strategic planning approach, which focuses on the organization and its ability to accomplish its mission in a fiscally responsible way. This approach is typically used to address the infrastructure level of the public health pyramid, rather than address specific health conditions. Examples of this approach are the Healthy People goals and objectives. In New York State, changes to healthcare facilities or services must be approved by the Department of Health, and a certificate of need must be completed. For example, if you wanted to increase the number of beds in a skilled nursing facility or change an inpatient clinic to an outpatient one, you would need to submit a certificate of need. These processes allow the state to plan and ensure healthcare services are appropriately distributed across the population. There are many models shown here that have been used in planning public health programs. Each model has different strengths. For example, CDC and the National Association of County and City Health developed protocols for assessing community excellence in environmental health. This is a community environment health assessment tool which can be used at city, county, and state levels. One of the key aspects of this tool is its focusing on building relationships with community members and sharing the power and responsibilities with the community. There are many types of health assessments listed here. such as organizational, which looks at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, otherwise known as a SWOT analysis of the organization, which will be providing the health program. There's also a marketing assessment, which can be used to understand how interested the target audience is in the health program. This data can be collected at the same time as the community needs assessment and can answer questions such as, what will draw the target audience into the program? Needs assessments are used to determine gaps and, needs in a defined community or population. These data are used to identify health problems or conditions which the health program can address. A community health assessment is used to establish the magnitude of a certain health problem in a certain community and determine the priority the community has given the problem. This assessment answers the question, what are the key health problems and which resources are available to address those health problems? Rapid assessments are designed to quickly identify immediate and pressing needs, and a workforce assessment examines the availability of human resources to address the health problem. As you are collecting and reviewing public health data, be sure to consider the numerators and denominators for different epidemiology rates. This table can be used as a reference. And we will discuss more about the different epidemiologic terms which are used in public health during our lecture next week. One example of these rates are neonatal and infant mortality rates in the US and Cuba. You can see that the US has lower rates, Cuba has lower rates of both neonatal and infant mortality. Why do we care about these statistics? First, they are important indicators of our healthcare delivery system and population health. Second, the healthcare costs in the US are much higher than in Cuba, with a marginal difference in the outcomes between the two countries. If you were planning a program to address infant mortality in the United States, which of the 6 approaches that we've previously discussed would you use? In summary, I want you to remember that the community must be defined to determine the health program recipients. Also, there are several approaches to planning, but none are right or wrong, and that it all depends on the situation that you're in. There are also several different types of health assessment which you should familiarize yourself with, and be sure to review and be comfortable with different epidemiology terms and rates which are all used in public health planning. On this slide and the following, there are resources which you can continue to explore on your own. That's it for this week. Please check Blackboard for additional materials.